Yes, that has definitely been posited a number of times by a lot of different people. So let's examine that, because ultimately this is the type of thing that can demotivate a lot of people to be interested in this, because it seems like this thing that's overwhelming, that's something that the average person out there can't do anything about. This is something that's taking place at the UN Security Council and other things that we just watch unfold on the nightly news like some sort of horror movie. But what is the way that people can find to actually insert themselves into this, to actually make a difference in the type of political calculus that's happening in the region?
Well, I that's a very important question. I wish I had more to do. I'm not sure if what I do is making any effect, but the least that one can do is to speak out, to educate yourself, to educate others, and to speak out. The more people speak out, the more people seek alternate media and stop paying attention to mainstream media, the more that you can't be lied to. There's activist movements. One that is being led by Ken O'Keefe, that is trying to create a trade between Palestine and the rest of the world. And that, I think, something like that really has an effect on the ground. But I wish I could make better advice for people, but it's a question that I myself don't really have the answer to.
Well, I think we're all struggling with the answer, and I think it can only come in whatever way each of us is situated, and that's going to look very different for a Canadian living in Japan, or whoever also out there might be listening to this conversation. Everyone's in their own situation. So I agree, though, that one of the fundamental ways that we are led into war after war is through the lies. And I think that we're living in a fundamentally different paradigm than we were, say, a decade ago, when the U.S. waltzed into Afghanistan, and the vast majority of the people in America and a lot of people around the world supported that action based on the lies about 9/11, for example. So I think we're in a different media paradigm, and I think it would be a lot harder to start that type of broad military intervention, barring some sort of cataclysmic event that we often talk about that might be coming, for example, in the Strait of Hormuz. Along those lines, what do you think? Do you think that the public is at a point where they might be able to see through a transparent fraud like a false flag event?
Well, after the Iraq War, I would have said that because, 2 years after Afghanistan, the people were totally against the Iraq War. But then what we saw in Libya was that the media was so powerful that, in fact, a lot of people were convinced that Libya was the right thing to do, even people that are staunchly on the left. So I think that the mainstream media is always trying to find new ways to fool people into thinking that it is a fair and balanced media. What they did with Al Jazeera, they set it up to be this opposition to the U.S. and pro-democracy, and then they turn around and they back something else up. So people don't know where to look. So while their media lies have become more sophisticated because people have become more educated, unfortunately, I think in some ways it is still being successful. And that's because people forget the axioms of politics. People just should remember that countries act in a way to gain power. That is number one thing you should think about. There's no question about humanitarianism. Aid is just a way of control. Every action that they do is to gain influence and to gain control. You can put ideology aside. All of that is just paint for the walls. If you start to think along those lines, it'll be very difficult for you to be convinced by the media of the positive thing of attacking countries.
That's exactly right. And that applies not just in international politics, but in internal politics as well. Of course, anything that helps to expand the government's control over its own people is also welcomed, which is exactly why false flag events work so well, because they get people to rally around the flag and support the people who secretly are working against their best interests. But again, I think there is a growing number of people who are aware of these tricks. And it's a question of if it's enough of a percentage to actually make a difference when the time comes. But again, playing out from here, I mean, we're still looking at what's happening in Syria. It's still unfolding. Egypt, again, is still undergoing its throes of revolution of one sort or another, with people now trying to get rid of the military dictatorship, but maybe just installing the Muslim Brotherhood, and happening in country after country. It's not a very pleasant picture in any field that we're looking at. So I guess once again the question becomes, what do you think A, is the likely short-term consequences of this, and B, in the long-term agenda, if we are looking at some sort of global conflict for the institution of some sort of global body or whatever, what do you think are the long-term likely consequences of this agenda?
I think that the consequence in the long term is going to be a lot of death, a lot of poverty, in order for this new world order, this new global government to take place, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So you can rest assured that such a world government is not going to have the people's best interests at heart. I think that, the wars that are going to create this could have ramifications that will last for thousands of years if nuclear weapons are used. In the short term, I think that stability is going to, my view of what's going to happen is positive. I actually believe that stability is going to return to Syria. I believe that the foreign countries that are funding the insurgency are going to back off, and they're going to realize that they're not actually going to gain anything by continuing to put money into this, and I just don't see, because so much time has passed by and Syria is still standing. I think we're going to come out of this as a whole country, a stronger country, and that this world war that they want to happen, maybe it will be delayed for a long time to come.
Well, we can only hope, and we can only do what we can to forestall the coming of that war. So any other points or any final thoughts you'd like to leave people with today?
I can't think of anything right now. I'm sorry.
Well, let me suggest to you, one of the courses of action that I recommend for people at all times and all points is to try to withdraw themselves from the systems of control as much as possible, because it seems to me that people feed into it by even what products they choose to purchase on a daily basis, which support the corporations, which support the government corporation nexus, which is the military-industrial complex, etc., etc., and that the more that people can get off of the grid in whatever sense that might be, whether literally in terms of energy or whether in terms of food, growing things in their back garden, that's something that I always try to encourage people towards, is to try and get away from feeding that beast system with their dollars or yen or pesos or whatever it may be. What do you think about that as a type of strategy for people becoming involved in this?
I think that definitely, first, it does help to boycott specific companies that have weapons contracts and that fund apartheid states such as Israel. I also think that it's not just what you buy, but who you work for. You should boycott, working for certain companies. It's not okay to be part of something that is going to kill people, no matter how far you are down the line. Also, it's good to unplug your television, as I said before, and start educating people around you about what's happening. There was something I wanted to say, but now I forgot.
Well, when you remember, we can get you back on the program to talk about it. All right. Well, let's leave it there for now. But tell people once again what your YouTube and Twitter accounts are so they can follow you.
Okay, so my YouTube account is Syrian Girl Partisan, and if you Google Syrian Girl, some of my videos might come up. And my Twitter account is just Partisan Girl. And I also have a Facebook, but all of the information is in those.
All right, excellent. Well, people can certainly find you, but don't use Google, use startpage.com. It's a little bit better for privacy. On that note, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.